everybody. Meg Czapiewski here with your market report from Honorable Service Realty Group. This is the data from through 31 May of 2026, and we'll share our slides so that you can. There we go. All right, let's get this into presentation mode and start with Fairfax County. Typical spring pattern here as we inclined in our activity. These new pendings are those things that went under contract in the month of May. It's a year-over-year increase of 3%. That's good. It's showing some increase in activity. We need that, as you'll see when we get to supply and demand. And yeah, they didn't really increase much over from April to May. It looks like it's pretty much a flat line, but still steady activity in the spring market. We don't have much more of spring left. All right, taking a look at supply and demand. I always like comparing these two because they're just so drastically different. But median days on market, this is 6. So for the most part, all spring long, they've been under a week in Fairfax County of those homes that went under contract. And then those homes that are not going under contract are accumulating and accumulating and accumulating to the point where they're just a touch over 1.5 months of inventory, which means that if buyers continue to buy at this pace, there's enough inventory with nothing else added that it would take 1.5 months to get through all of that inventory, which is a far cry from 1 week. And the year-over-year increase on this is really just, it's actually not an increase. It's a slight decrease, but 0.3%, it's really not statistically relevant. Median sales price. This is where you ultimately care, right? Like, I don't know if I care how fast my home sells for. What I care about is how much it sells for, and does that reflect a growth and equity for me? So in single family homes, great numbers, 9.3%. The national average sits around 2 to 3%. So great in single family homes, that median sales price just over $1 million. Even in the townhomes, that's not a bad number, 2.3% national average. It's growth. And it's not like most people just bought last year. They bought years ago. And so they've been experiencing some level of growth year over year over year. And in this case, 2.3% reflected in May of 25 versus May of 26. Our condo and co-op line a little lagging in terms of growth, to a slight decline in about 2%. But it really has stayed fairly steady over the course of the whole year. And it's just represents such a small number of things that sell in Fairfax County. All right, this is a slide you haven't seen before, but I was just so curious. Where are all these people really buying? What price points? So this is reflecting closed sales. And in the month of May, where you saw the most sales is woofda, way up here. That's 1 million to 2.5 million. These are in $200,000 increments. So I know that's a pretty big spread, but we'd have lines everywhere if we necked that down. So taking a look at this, this is reflecting a 29% growth year over year as well. If they didn't have a reflected growth, I didn't show the number. So really this is the only price bracket that didn't. And where you're seeing the modest growth is sort of in those middle price points. And where you're seeing bigger growth is in the extremes. Either the less expensive homes where people maybe they're investors that decided to purchase in the condo co-op range and rent those out. Maybe they're the luxury price points, or look at this, 87% price increase from that 2.5 to 5 million. That reflects 30 homes. It's not huge when you're talking about the thousands of homes that sold in Fairfax County, but that's still, 30 homes in the 2.5 to 5 million range and reflecting a significant increase. And then, like I said, a fairly modest but still increase in these price points from 600 to a million. All right, let's take a look at Prince William County. Again, we saw the ramp up for the spring, still seeing a little bit of a growth month over month, as well as a nice 11% increase year over year in new sales in the month of May. Supply and demand still under 10 days. This reflects 8 days. So yes, it's gone up slightly since April, but that is a great number to have your homes selling in just about a week. That, however, is the tale for those that have attracted a buyer and have gone under contract, and all the rest of them come over to this graph and just keep accumulating to this line. And that reflects a 20% increase year over year in accumulated inventory. That will eventually show up in cancels, withdrawns, price drops, and overall and showing a decline in the price, the equity that homeowners are earning. Not these guys, but all of these guys. Median sales price, again, still showing a growth. That's good. That's a little over the national average at 755,000. But year over year of 3.4% growth. And this is, about the same as it has been for a while. It's in the low 500s in the townhomes market, and, negative 0.6%. That's, again, a non-statistic. It's pretty much flatlined and staying right in those low fives. Here is where you're seeing the buyer magnets price point wise in Prince William County. This is the one that I'm most impressed with. This is that dark green is 32% increase, and that's a pretty big number from 800 to a million, or just shy of a million. Sits here. And then not too insignificant when you look at the price points of 1 to 2.5 million, they're seeing a 6.5% increase. Again, like what we saw in Fairfax, there's kind of this modest price point that's not seeing growth at all. This was actually a decline, so there's no number reflecting. And then more growth in that 400 to 500 range, 400 to 500 range, where you saw a 15% growth. People that most likely would have normally been in the 5 to 600 range, but felt like the mortgages were with these interest rates were stressing their affordability factor, and so they opted for something in this price bracket. Okay, Stafford County, we'll take a look. Yep, they're also seeing a month over month growth and a decent enough growth in year over year trends as well for their new sales. Their days on market were very high for the longest time, whereas the others were hanging down here. But they finally got under 10 days as well. So that's good news for Stafford. Their accumulation year over year growth is not as bad as Stafford, as Prince William County at just a little over 10%. But taking a look at these numbers, this is, etching up to that 3-month mark. We saw that back in the fall, and then it dipped down under 2, and now it quickly rose back up over 2 and is heading towards 3 months, that is more concerning because the price points are going to be stressed when things have 2.5 months of days on market. And I think that's what you'll see reflected here. A almost 4% equity drop year over year prices in single family homes, and the townhomes where people have potentially shifted their focus to stay in a more affordable price bracket is up almost 9%. And then here is where people are buying in Stafford. We are not seeing growth in these million plus, but we did see solid growth in the 800 to just under a million, and then solid growth in that townhome median price point of 400 to 500,000, with modest growth in some of the others, and where you would have typically expected to see median price points. And there's not a reflection of growth in that price bracket, even though it does reflect, as does this, the majority of the sales. All right, so what are those takeaways? What were you saying, Meg? Here's what I'm saying. Overall, market activity is positive. It is a positive story in that May is still active, buyers are out, and buyers are making quick decisions for the most part as well. And the important thing about the activity and the days on market and then the increase in inventory is that your best opportunity to get sold is in those first 10 days in that initial launch, and it has to be done right. So a late launch, though not great, is always better than a bad launch. You've heard me say that before. Home values, it's kind of all over the map, right? To some degree, there's, Fairfax is certainly showing stronger growth than some of the numbers in further south, Prince William County and Stafford. But in some cases, the townhomes are showing great growth, whereas the single families are lagging, and in the other county, it's the other way around. So it really depends not just on the type of home and the county, but it's going to depend a lot on the actual neighborhoods, school zones, amenities, all the things that make one neighborhood sell better than another. Home value, based on the prices that we saw, that fun graph of all the colors and all the lines, what I'm seeing is that all three counties are seeing most year-over-year increase sort of at the ends, the lowest prices and the highest prices. And then those middle of the road prices, that's where you've seen some divergence. Either they have bought up, they've decided that, look, what we want, the prices are up here now, and we're buying what we want. So now's the time, regardless of the interest rates, regardless of affordability, I'm buying what I want my lifestyle to have. Or they have sort of fleeted down into that next lower price bracket to cause some relief in their mortgage because of the affordability, the interest rates, the inflation. It's just caused that movement out of the middle of the road prices that we typically saw more growth into the ends. So if you are curious about what your home value is and whether or not that would be an appealing price for today's buyers, we have all sorts of data that we can neck down to see like where all the showings are. And obviously we've seen where the sales are to help you make those decisions. Is now a good time to sell? Should we wait? We can help. Give us a call. We look forward to helping. And thanks for watching. Stopping to share, and we will see you next month.